Welcome back, my podcast friends. And once again, this is Dr. Steve Hewlett and his wife, Theresa. And today we are interviewing Debbie Weiss. And I think you are going to get a lot out of this. And thank you so much, Debbie, for joining us today.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank
And
you so
then,
much for having me.
and then we'll let Theresa tell everybody just a little bit about who Debbie Weiss is.
Yeah. So we're really excited to have you on the show, Debbie, because we're getting ready to give a little bit of your story. And then of course you will definitely tell your story, but it's very interesting and kind of uh, just an interesting life that you've led. So
Yep.
Debbie's an entrepreneur, author, and lifelong caregiver. In her it's not upcoming, it's out now. Your memoir, On Second Thought, Maybe I Can, which I love that name. She details her transformational story of overcoming obstacles and living out your wildest dreams. Chicken Soup for the Soul series co-author Jack Canfield says Debbie's memoir will teach you a lot of lessons and inspire and motivate you. She's going to share pivotal moments in her life, starting from her weight struggles at a very early age and the thought that life was happening to her. Debbie was the victim and was living with the fear of allowing herself to chase her dreams. After a life of prioritizing everyone else's needs and opinions other than her own, Debbie realized at the age of 50 that this was her one and only life. She didn't want to look back years from now and regret for the things that she had never done. She stopped saying, I can't, and replaced it with maybe I can. So really, I just want you to start with your story, because you were a lifelong caregiver and you really have been at a very young age.
I have. Thank you. At 17, I became my father's caregiver. He just turned 46 and he had a massive stroke, became permanently disabled. And soon after, my parents divorced. And so for the next 30 years, I was his primary caregiver. He did not live with me, but I was, responsible for everything in his life, where he lived, his money, his doctors, everything and anything that you can imagine. And then when my oldest son was 2, he was diagnosed on the autistic spectrum and later added ADHD and some pretty serious depression and anxiety. And then about 5 years ago, my husband became permanently disabled due to a variety of both physical and mental illness. And out of the blue in June of 22, he was diagnosed with a terminal blood cancer unrelated to all of his other issues. And he passed away on December 30th of last year.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
Thank you.
Mhm. That must be so hard.
It is so hard. It
Mm.
is. It's like, how do you live with two conflicting emotions at the same time, right? I've had this incredible year of so many exciting things, writing this book or, publishing this book, I should say, in 2023 and starting my own podcast and, all of these great things that I've been doing. But yet, there's always that underlying grief there and almost a guilty feeling of, oh gosh, I hate to be excited because I shouldn't be, because, I should just be grieving.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You should be excited because now you're finally doing something for yourself.
Yes.
Which is everything. And so many people have one major thing that might happen to them in their life and they fall victim, and they get in that mentality and they stay that. Here you've had huge things with your father and your son and your husband and yourself. And it's like, oh my gosh, you have all this. What made it click that you are not going to be a victim anymore, that you are going to take care and control of your life and decide how you want to end up your life instead of with regrets? What was there any one thing, or was it just what we see, just massive amounts of negative things or things?
Yeah. So as Theresa said, it was when I turned 50, my friends insisted that we go away for a weekend to celebrate. And it was literally the first time in my adult life that I didn't have to think or worry about anybody else. And it was amazing. And through the course of some of those conversations, and I think for me, it was something about 50, looking back, well, am I going to have another 50 years? Am I really at the halfway point? I hope so. But obviously, none of us ever know. And it was that thought of, if I died now, would I look back with regret? And I would. And I am not saying that I regret taking care of my loved ones, because I would not change that.
All right.
But what I really regretted was the fact that I lost myself in all of that. And there was no reason why I couldn't care for myself and them.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a either or, it was an and.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was at that juncture that I really started thinking, well, I didn't even know what I wanted. I hadn't even really explored anything, because I was so young when I first started. So it was just, I graduated college and I had an accounting degree and I became a CPA, and this is what you do. And, life actually took me then. I moved from New York to New Jersey because I had this opportunity to open up an insurance agency. And we just, kind of just went along as life's road took me, instead of me guiding where I was going to
Right.
go. And my first I didn't even know there was a name for it or what I was doing. But after that trip, at that point, I probably had 100 pounds to lose. And let me just give some backstory when it comes to my
Sure.
weight. I was My mother laughs and tells this story. Oh, when you were 6 months old, you were gaining weight too quickly. So the doctor said, you can't have whole milk. You have to give her skim milk.
Great.
And then my parents would always joke, oh, she was born at 11:40 a.m., right in time for lunch. And I
Mm.
grew up, and looking back, how sometimes you look back and you're like, I thought I was like literally, at 100 pounds overweight, and I was chubby.
Uh-huh.
But I grew up I have one brother, he's 4 years younger, and the rest of my immediate family was thin. My mother was thin, my father was thin, my brother was a
Right.
beanpole until he was until he was an adult. And it was really difficult, especially between my mother and myself, because she didn't know how to help me. I was resentful of her, especially looking at the way that she looked. And, she would put me on these diets and start limiting my food. I mean, back then in like the early 70s, we're talking like really limiting.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I was allowed to have 2 pieces of Melba toast for breakfast, and then I couldn't eat anything else until lunch. And, that was a salad.
Oh my
And,
gosh.
like, how long could you, it was unrealistic. And they would hide food
Ah,
in the house. So everybody knew where it was, snacks and treats
Yeah.
that I couldn't have, but I would know they were hiding it.
You knew all the spots.
I knew all the spots, and then they would find new spots. And then I would find the spot, and I start eating. Let's just say it's cookies. And I'd start eating. I'm like, okay, tell myself I'm only going to have 2 cookies.
Yeah.
And I think then all of a sudden I looked and there was only 2 cookies left in the box, right? And then it became, who ate those cookies?
Right.
And it was shameful.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a lot of baggage that started my lifelong weight struggle. I mean, as I'm sure so many of your listeners can relate to, gain 50, lose 60, gain 80, lose, it was up and down and up and down. And I just really did feel like a victim. Why me? Especially because I was in this family of skinnies. My
Right.
extended family was not. They all had weight problems, but not my immediate family. And I felt like I was in the wrong place.
Yep.
So that struggle has continued my entire life. And like I said, when I was about in my early 50s, I had about 100 pounds to lose. And for me, tried all the diets. Weight Watchers was something that, not back in the 70s, but as time went on, got a little more realistic and something that I had success with. And I thought, okay, I'm going to go back to Weight Watchers, but this time, instead of being focused on the number, right? It
Mhm.
was always,
Right.
I want to lose 25 pounds in 3 months or by my birthday or the summer or,
Right.
all those things. And then if I didn't, I was a failure.
Exactly.
So I was
More
setting
victimhood.
myself up to fail.
Yep.
So I decided I'm going to try something different, right? Because Albert Einstein said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and thinking you're going to get a different result.
Yep.
So I said, I'm going to go back to Weight Watchers and I'm just going to go to the meeting every week. That's it. I'm not going to track my food. I am not going to care about the number on the scale. I am just going to commit to going every week. And that's what I did. And I didn't do any of those other things. Maybe I lost 2, gained 1, basically stayed the same.
Mhm.
And then once I, had that down, I added something else. I'm going to track my food, 50% of the time. And I just kept building upon that. And I really tried not to have that adversarial relationship with the scale.
Right.
Because what I wound up finding is that other people's bodies might purge weight one way, mine didn't.
Mhm.
I would, like, 3 weeks in a row, it'd be a little bit up, a little bit down, a little bit up. And then the last week, I would see like a 2-pound loss. And it was very slow. But it was the first time in my life that I realized this is not a diet. And now everybody says lifestyle, but honestly, then nobody was really saying it. And my
Mm.
kids, if I would eat a cookie and my kids would be like, Mom, is that on your diet? And I would say, I'm not on a diet. It's a lifestyle.
Exactly.
And it was that mindset shift of, I'm not coming off this. This is it. This is now the way I'm going to eat for the rest of my life. And I am not going to berate myself because I ate the cookie. Well, for me, it's really ice cream. So if I had the ice cream, I'm not going to berate myself because this is living. But just because I eat the ice cream doesn't mean I have to eat a pint of ice cream. And it doesn't mean that even if I ate the pint of ice cream, it doesn't mean that I just keep going. Like, because what was that mentality? Oh, I screwed up.
Right.
Oh, I
Right.
screwed
You
up.
beat
I
yourself
might as
up.
well just, keep on going. And
Right.
we
Right.
all know where that gets us.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, I love that part about just doing one little thing at a time, because we just did a podcast about that. Just one thing, because we always want to do the big. It's like, just like you were saying, I want to lose 25 pounds by my birthday or by we always want to do that. And we tackle all of these things at the same time. And then we don't meet that. And then we beat ourselves up. We aren't worthy. What are we trying to do? We can't lose this weight. And I love that you just I would have never thought just to show up for a meeting once a week
Right. Not
would
doing
be,
anything they say, just show up
yeah.
for the meeting.
Uh-huh.
That's huge.
Mhm.
That's like we have someone that we've heard about that did the same thing kind of with working out, where all they did for one full year, all he had to do is every day or 4 times a week or whatever it was, all he had to do is get up, put his workout clothes on, drive to the gym and walk in the door. That's all he had to do. He could immediately turn around and walk right out the door again, but he had to do that. And he said, and there were some times that he did. He walked in the door and turned right around and left. But most of the time, it's just that thought, just getting started. And so once you're there, like, well, I might as well do it. But again, it's just focused on that one little thing. Because I think people put so many goals on their plate that they know there's no way they're going to ever master them. And it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy of, well, look, I guess I'm not supposed to make goals. I'm not supposed to do anything greater with my life or anything, and it's so hard for them to realize that just like you said, you don't make a goal of, I'm going to lose, 50 pounds in 2 months or whatever. You make a goal of, today, I'm going to not eat any sugar. Today, I'm not going to eat any carbohydrates. What are you going to do today? And then tomorrow say, what am I going to do today? And it breaks it down and just know that those are in line with what your ultimate goal is, but you're not focusing on the ultimate goal. Just do your little bitty simple task day by day. And the way you did that was amazing. And we will tell that to other people as well.
Mhm.
I didn't even know what I was doing though. You know what I'm saying? That's what I mean. I don't recall where I got that from. And as you're talking about the little itty bitty goals, I was on another podcast and the woman was telling me sometimes, like for the gym, it's just put your sneakers on in your house. Even starting with, I'm not going to eat sugar, from now until 11 o'clock.
Right.
Yeah.
Like a day could be too much. And that's
Right.
okay. Like any small improvement that you can make, because once you get started, and I'm actually going to tell you a story about when I quit smoking.
Sure.
I started smoking when I was a teenager. My parents smoked. Back then, everybody smoked, right? In the car with the windows rolled up. And I loved it. I loved smoking. I'm not going to lie. And when I was in my early 20s, it was like, that was the time where it's like, yeah, this is bad for you. You've got to quit. And I kept thinking, yeah, someday. And I got a terrible case of mono and I was very sick and I was home and I was smoking and not enjoying it and coughing and I didn't tell anyone. And I was not quitting. Like in my mind, I was not quitting. But I said to myself, I am not going to smoke until 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And then once you got to 1 o'clock, kind of like, with the sugar, I made it all the way to 1 o'clock. Let me push it to 2. And it continued that way. I did this for 6 days. I did not smoke for 6 days. And I didn't tell anyone because I felt like once I put it out there, now everyone's going to know that I've made that goal of quitting smoking. But for those 6 days, I just kept increasing, be like, oh, look, you did it, and it's like, it's that positive reinforcement you're giving yourself when you see yourself achieving those small little goals. And on the 6th day or the 7th day, I told people I was quitting, and I have never had one drag of a cigarette since then.
That's fantastic. And that's so huge because that is a lot of times that people say that, when you're setting a goal, tell people, because if you tell them, then that's going to help keep you on track. But in reality, sometimes that puts even more pressure on you. It's like, oh, great. And now you feel even worse because now when you don't do the goal, now somebody else is going to know about it. And so everybody is different. Just like you said, everybody's different. Just realize what motivates you, but that what helps with everybody is that one little step, just one step every day, every half day, whatever, just that one thing. Because I could see that. I'm the kind that I would want to tell somebody because they help motivate me. But I think it kind of depends on what the goal is.
Yeah. Well, and I didn't want to say, I didn't want to say it until I knew I was committed to it.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. See, I would be thinking also, what if somebody was going to be like, oh, you shouldn't be smoking a cigarette, like they do,
Right.
they do the cookie.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, you should be eating that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you started, is your, I don't even know how to say this. Your son is still alive, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I have 2 sons. Yes.
Okay. 2 sons. Okay.
Yeah.
So is your father and your husband was just recently, right?
Right. Yes.
Do you have your son? Is he able to support? Are you guys support each other through this?
Yes. So he lives with me. He does not work currently.
Right.
He is 22. And then I have another son who's going to be 21 in a few weeks. He's a junior in college. So he's not here, my other son.
Right.
Most of the time he's at school. And so it's just my older son and I. And like I said, he struggles with a lot of anxiety and depression. He struggles with a lot of the similar things that my husband did. And it's very difficult, but it is nice actually to kind of just be the 2 of us, because with the mental illness, it had been a different difficult household to live in for quite some time. So it's kind of peaceful with just he and I most of the time.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
But that's so crazy. I totally respect you. Like I said, just all the different excuses people use to not achieve their goals. I don't know. I'm assuming you know who Tony Robbins is.
Mhm.
Tony Robbins.
Yes, of
And
course.
I mean, he's said multiple things that we live by. But one thing that we talked about here recently is talking about dying, being at the end of your life and looking back saying, I should have done this, I should have done that, and you end up shooting all over yourself. And
Exactly.
that's what you don't want to do, is that. And here, that's why I was wondering, does your son, do either one of them realize what you've done after you lost your father, you lost your husband, now you have your son, and with all this, you said, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm losing my weight. I'm writing a book. I'm starting a podcast. I'm going to start a program. I think you're getting ready to start a program.
Yes.
I mean, that's huge. That is totally going from victim to saying, my gosh, I am in control of my life. And I think that's huge. Does your son, the one that's in college, does he realize this huge thing that you've done?
It's funny you should say that. I think, so it's been a slow progression, but things have kind of like sped up over the last year or so with my, where I am now. And honestly, one of my, you got to figure out, why am I doing that? Why am I doing what I'm doing? And I'm doing what I'm doing because I want every person alive now to know what I discovered is, stop being a victim. You're in control of your life.
Yep.
Or you should be. We all have the power to
Right.
do whatever it is. And so, but my other why is to show my sons that, right? And the best way to do that is lead by example.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
And I had a book launch party. People I knew, there was maybe 50, 60 people there. And I had my sons MC the party. And it was, they emceed, and then I gave a talk for about a half hour. And then my brother was there, and my brother interviewed me. So it was a whole little family affair.
Oh, how cool.
It was really fun. It was great. I felt like after what we'd been through, we needed a reason to celebrate.
Mm-hmm.
And after I gave my talk, I look over, and my younger son is he's not stoic, but he doesn't give you much. And he came up to me, and he's like, not a hugger. He's one of those kind of side huggers.
Yeah.
He hugged me so hard, and he was like, Mom, I am so proud of you. I listened to every word you said, which obviously is a big deal.
Starting today.
Yeah. Just for that half hour. That was the only time he listened. And, since then, or I've noticed, when I've had exciting things happen to me, they are both excited with me. And even when Ben is my younger son, he's not here. I had something exciting happen this week, and he was just texting every, and checking in. Did you do it? How was it? And just, I'm so proud of you. He just kept texting to me.
Isn't
So,
that
that's amazing. It's amazing.
See, and that's what we want to try to get through people. Like just that, how you right now, as you're saying this, how you can see the glow in your eyes, like it's so amazing. And because you took control and you did this, and that's what we're trying to tell people with these goals is the reason you set goals is to make life fun, make life enjoyable, make it something you go for, and don't put all these hard goals that you're never going to get. You totally defeat the purpose. The purpose is to enjoy life and to get better. And the goals could be anything that you want to do, as long as you're doing something towards a goal where you can get the feeling that you just showed us of you start feeling proud of yourself instead of a victim. You're like, look, I can do it. I can do it. And if you do that with little bitty goals, you start getting the momentum. It's like, I can do this. I can do this. And then you start building up, maybe get a little bit bigger goal, but it's not really a bigger goal because you've already set the stage with or smaller goals before that. And I think that's huge what you've done. And I really hope people are listening. People who, I know people don't really actually think of themselves as victims, even though every time they open their mouth, nothing but victimhood comes out, so that's part of it, is realizing. And that's one of the things, is you'll know if you're a victim or not, or acting like you're a victim, if you don't have any goals. If you don't wake up tomorrow and think, what, I know exactly what I'm gonna do tomorrow, I know exactly what I'm gonna do this week, next week, I it's planned out, then you have goals. But if you wake up like, well, wonder what today's going to be like, chances are you're a victim. Your day, your life just goes by whatever blows around you. And that's what we're trying to get people off this. Take control. You can really do this. It's not hard, just little bitty things at little times. So I'm so impressed by what you've done. Those are major, major milestones. Those are no little things at all.
Thank you.
I'm sure, the victim, you're taking care of everybody, and definitely not taking care of yourself.
Yeah. I'll tell you something. I didn't realize I had that victim mentality either. And something that I've learned that really resonates with me, it's from Jack Canfield's The Success Principles book. It's a formula, E+R=O. That stands for the event plus your response equals the outcome. And I didn't realize there was that R, right? It was like, oh, my father had a stroke, terrible outcome. My life sucks.
Right. Right.
However, if I'm not happy with that outcome, the variable is how we respond to it. And I felt like, well, what am I supposed to do? Look at all these things that happened. But if you think about other people, now none of our life's experience is exactly the same, right? But there are similarities, and we all have challenges. And maybe this isn't a good example, but we all know what Oprah's childhood was like, right?
Mm-hmm.
How many people had a childhood like that and said, forget it, I don't stand a chance with all of these things that happened, poverty and your parents not there, whatever, abuse. I'm destined to stay in the same spot.
Right.
She's special, of course, but she's not, because the thing that made her special is she said, no, I believe in myself, and I'm not using my circumstances as an excuse. And there's always examples of people who, because everybody overcame something, right? And they didn't allow that to stop them. And when you realize how much you're blaming or complaining somebody else, the weather, the economy, wrong. All those things, yes,
They just happen.
They
Life.
happen. But it's how we respond to those things. And
Mhm.
you have control over how you respond, regardless of how bad it is.
Right.
And that's when I realized, oh, I was viewing myself as a victim, because I was a victim of the E, right? I was the victim of the event. And so that just equals a lousy outcome.
Right. And you show up as a better person. I'm
Oh,
sure, whenever you were being a victim with even around your father, maybe you didn't show up the best you could have. Just, I don't know, mad at the world or.
Exactly. Very resentful. I was resentful. I snapped at him a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
I wish he didn't pass away before my realization.
Really, I know.
Yeah.
That's hard.
It's really crazy. You've got, just like you've been alluding to, you've got to get control of your thoughts, and that's what, we talk about. And Theresa definitely is going to be talking a lot about it, in future things with, because your thoughts really do control your feelings. And once you have those feelings, that controls your actions and that controls your results. So the first, if you don't like the result, you got to change your thoughts. And that's huge. You'd said something else, when you had a mind shift, from going from victimhood to saying, I'm not going to do this.
So was it that
anymore.
trip? Is that?
Yeah. That's right. That's
was that the big thing? Was it the trip that?
The trip just kind of, I think, started it off. And it was just, I think, also the turning 50. And then I started with the weight thing.
Right.
And then when I saw, and by the way, I never reached my goal. I still haven't reached my goal, but that's okay because
Yeah.
I did lose the majority of the weight.
Yeah. And you're
And
still alive.
yeah,
There's
and I'm still
gold
alive.
medal.
And this is the first time in my life, I want to say, I have to look back when I actually got to the lowest, and I can, just hadn't gotten any lower than that. I want to say maybe it was 2016 or 17. And so this is the first time in my life where I haven't put it all back on plus some.
Mhm.
Yeah, I went up 10 pounds. Once I almost hit the 15-pound mark that I went up. But I then said, okay, time to reel it back in. Instead of allowing what had happened in the past, just, oh crap, I gained 15 pounds. Forget it. I'm just not going to step on the scale anymore. I
Right.
mean,
That's
and
a-
forget that I'll go to those other clothes that I have in the back of the closet that, are still sitting there so I can fit into something.
Mhm.
And so it's the first time that I ever did that. And so I think I thought to myself, I, realized, that change actually worked. So maybe I can apply it to other areas of my life. The other thing that I think I started to do was be a little more open. And that's where the kind of I can't to maybe I can. Anytime that anything was presented to me, an idea, something to do, anything I was uncomfortable with or didn't think that I would be good at, I would just say, I can't do that. And I'd have the excuses all ready to go. And in my head, I'd be telling myself why I couldn't do that. And what I found is, I'm saying I can't because I'm afraid, right? I'm afraid of something. I'm afraid of looking stupid. I'm afraid of being judged, which,
Mhm. Yeah,
as an
definitely.
overweight person, you're judged your whole life for what you look like.
Yep.
Why am I going to put myself in that position? There's nothing good could come of it.
Mhm.
However, what I found is once you are able to walk through that fear, it's amazing what happens on the other side. So I'll give you an example. It was soon after I lost the weight. I'm Jewish and I belong to a very small synagogue, and I'd been active and I'd been the treasurer for 3 years. I've been the vice president for 4 years. They asked me to be president. Every time I'd be like, no, no, no. Well, I said no because I was scared. I was scared of a lot of different things that I would have to do, but the main fear was public speaking.
Mhm.
Because twice a year you have to get up in front of the whole congregation, and at a time where everyone comes, right? Not the time where nobody comes. Everybody comes and give a speech.
Oh.
And I remember asking Gary, my husband, because he hated that I volunteered. And I said, I don't know what to do. I had a couple of reasons why I was thinking about it. And one of the things is here I am in my mid 50s, and I am letting this fear stop me. And I did think, will I get to the end of my life and regret this? It was almost like climbing the mountain and just being like, oh, forget it. I don't really need to get to the top. Not that being president of like 100-member family temple is a big deal, but it wasn't that. It was overcoming my fear. Like, what? I'm 50 something years old and you're telling me I'm going to let this stop me? This has been stopping me my whole life, and it's time to face it. And I wrote the speech, just writing the speech was a big deal. I'll never forget the nerves, the sickness, I was petrified.
Yeah.
And I got up there and I started talking, and I had no saliva and my voice was shaky. And in the beginning, I had something where, people were supposed to laugh, and they did. And I was so excited, right? And then I had a story about my father, and my father had already died. And I had a story about my father who wanted to always be president of our synagogue growing up, and he had the stroke right before it was his turn. So it was also like I wanted to do this for him. And God, I get upset, emotional just thinking about it. And I told that story. And of course, I had practiced the speech, and I never got emotional when I practiced the speech. But standing there in that moment, saying it,
Mhm.
I had to stop. And I looked out, and other people had tears in their eyes
Yep.
and they were choked up and they were connecting with me. They
Yep.
weren't looking at their phones. They weren't, reaching into their bag. All eyes were on me, which was intimidating. But yet at that moment, it wasn't, because I realized, wow, how powerful it is to be able to get your point across and have other people really feel and embrace what you're saying.
Right.
If I hadn't done that, I would not be sitting here today.
I was wondering, now, where did that come from as far as your book? Did your book come after that or
Oh
before that?
gosh. Yeah, oh yeah, way after.
After.
Yeah.
The book came after that?
Oh yeah. The book happened just a year and a half ago. I never wanted to write a book. I am a math girl. I tell everyone I'm not a word person.
Yeah.
And I started really paying attention to signs in my life. You know how sometimes like things just kept showing up and showing up. And it was this book idea, because besides the caregiving, I've had, just like all of us, some other, big struggles. And it seemed like a book was the best way to get my message out there. But
Yep.
again, I don't know how to write a book.
Yep.
I was listening to a podcast, and a podcast I wasn't a regular listener of, and they were interviewing a guest who helped first-time authors get their story out there. And I so connected and resonated with her just listening to her. And I said, well, if I am going to do this, which I still don't think I am, I can't do it without help because I don't know what I'm doing. I contacted her. I loved her. She was just starting a 12-week course for first-time authors. And then my husband received his diagnosis.
Oh my gosh.
And I was seeing a therapist, and I said to my therapist, I am almost embarrassed to be asking you this question at a time like this. And I tell her that I had considered taking this, but now that, this has happened, of course, I'm not going to do it. And she said, no, you're wrong. This is the perfect time to do this, because you'll need something completely separate from what's going on, just for you to focus on. And I said, okay. And even when I joined, I really did not have expectations. I really tried to, at first I was like, well, it's kind of like the weight thing. I'm not going to be able to write a book, and I can't write a whole book. And what if I can't show up? And what if, all the excuses.
Right.
And I decided, whatever it is, it is.
Mm-hmm.
And once I got to a certain point, then I was like, kind of like with the smoking.
Mm-hmm.
I got this far, I'm going all the way. And I was very intentional with setting time slots almost every day to write that didn't interfere with my husband and doctors and,
Right.
whatever else was going on. And so I wrote the majority of the book while I was caring for him while he was dying.
And I bet that did help you psychologically get through it when you knew you just had time to yourself and you just vomit on the page and just get stuff out of your mind. It had to be therapeutic for you, wasn't it?
It was very therapeutic. I didn't understand how people say that writing is therapy, but it was. And I had to, even though sometimes the writing was really hard, because in order to describe it for the reader, you have to like mentally and emotionally put yourself back in that position, whether it's when I was 5 years old or, something that happened when I was 25. And so, but it was separate from what was going on, so, and I felt like I was making forward progress in something.
Right.
Where, especially when you're going, I'm sure most of us can relate to somebody going through cancer. It's almost like you're stuck.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that I could have something positive and something else to, concentrate on and strive for was
Right.
helpful.
That's huge. And I like, that's what like Tony Robbins calls it, chunking. When you have a big goal, you have this big goal and you look at it as like, oh my gosh, there's no way I'm going to be able to do that. And just chunk it down to just what part can you do? What little part can you do today just to get that momentum going? Just like you did, just sitting down and figuring out, what do you want to do? Use a Word document and just start typing or whatever. It doesn't even have to be writing a book. It has to be anything. But
Anything.
that's what I want people to realize is these are all huge goals. If they're huge, they're too big. Chunk them down. Still a goal to have. And the way you did that was amazing. I really, really liked that. And you're talking about the emotions. That's the other thing we were talking about, looking back on your past. And that's where emotions that's like the driving force of everything. If you can look on your past with just thoughts, think about it and don't put emotion with it, then you can use that to guide the future. It's once you start putting that emotion to it, that's when it can either suck you in or give you energy. And I bet that's different with a memoir, isn't it? Because with a memoir, when you look back over your thought, usually you want to look back with just thoughts, no emotion, and use those thoughts to guide your future. But if you're writing your memoirs, like you said, you have to put your emotions to those past thoughts. That would have to be really hard to write.
It was. I mean, I definitely had times where I was sobbing.
Oh,
Just writing, but it was an emotional release. And honestly, it was interesting because, I want to get my point across. And as I'm telling these stories, it's almost like I'm realizing more and more why I did what I do, why, because of those feeling unworthy because of my weight and not good enough and low self-esteem and I didn't want to be seen. I would never go into, like, if my mother said go into that store and buy me, blah blah blah, no way, I wouldn't do it. My brother, 4 years younger, that's a lot when you're like 12. He would go in, but I wouldn't.
Man, that's crazy. And we
Yeah.
haven't even talked about all these things that you've been through, and now how you've changed your life, and now you've written the book, you've started the podcast, you're getting a program going, and you also have a little shop. Is that correct? Is that still
Yes.
the thing?
Yes.
What's the shop?
So, when I was in college, I've always loved hearts, pink, red, whatever. Just make me happy. I don't know why. And when I was in college, there was a store. I was in Washington, D.C., and there was a store that sold only items with hearts. I had never seen anything like it before. And I wanted to go there every minute of the day. And I would tell my friends, one day I am going to own a heart store. I don't know. I might buy this one or I'm going to open another one. And literally the whole time I'm in school. And then life happens and I graduate, right? And forgot all about it. Still love hearts. That didn't change. Always looking, wearing things with hearts. Right? It probably was exactly a year ago. So the middle of November, it was right the week before Thanksgiving. My husband passed away. I didn't know that it was going to happen. It wasn't like he was in hospice or anything. So he passed away December 30th. So this is 6 weeks before he died. And I'm upstairs in my room, going to bed, scrolling. I don't even know what I was shopping for. And I put in hearts in the search, just like I did a million times. And all of a sudden it hit me. Oh my gosh, my heart store. Now in 2022, it doesn't have to be a brick and mortar store.
Right.
It can be an online store.
Yep.
So I was lucky that I had some contacts and I called the woman who actually helps kind of set up the online store. And I said to her, Sarah, I have no money. I have no time. I can't be shipping. I told her all the reasons. Can I do this? And she's like, yes. Wait, did you hear what I said? And she's like, we can do it. So I did. And so it's called A Sprinkle of Hearts. Sprinkleofhearts.com. And so it has, I'm just looking, I don't have it. Well, my phone case.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a variety of different items with hearts.
So you went from poor, pitiful me. I'm the victim. Nothing but bad things happened to me. My dad, my husband, my child, my life. And then all of a sudden, in a very short time, you've done all these things, and I guarantee you're not going to stop. You've got more goals in the future. The more you do, the more goals you see, and the better you start feeling. That's wonderful. That really is. I'm so excited for you. I love when people do that, and that's how, what we're doing. When you have a passion, when you really, really do want to teach somebody, and you've got so much life experiences, you could help so many people go through the same kinds of things. And that's just like what we're trying to do with people with their health. Just take control of your health, just little bitty things. Don't overwhelm, think, oh my gosh, I got to go run a marathon and lift,
exactly.
500 pounds. It's like, no, you don't. You just have to do a little thing, quick drinking soda pop, that's all you got to do that for now, just wean into it. And you are a perfect example of that. And how much the momentum starts. It's like,
exactly.
Wait, try to stop me now.
It's amazing. It's really amazing. Looking back, it's amazing. Actually, I got to tell you, I don't remember it doesn't matter. Just the other day, I thought to myself, I can remember at different ages of my life lying in bed alone, crying because of my weight. And, why me? Why me? This will never happen. And I thought to myself, if I could only tell that girl, woman, because it was all different ages, that you're just approaching it wrong.
Right.
And it's not about, like, I'm only talking about mindset. I'm not talking, oh, I should have done the no sugar. I should have, no. That's a whole other thing. And that, is what you talk about. It's not that. It's all up here.
Yep.
It doesn't matter really what the method, it's all in your mind.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
And that's huge. Getting control of your thoughts. The first thing you got to realize is that you do have control of your thoughts. When you start feeling weird inside, it's like, okay, there must be a thought going on here that I don't realize that I'm thinking, and isolating that. And, that it may take some sitting around and really think about what's going on with you. It's like, why do I think that way? What, and is this an empowering thought, or is this the thought that's making me get worse and worse? And man, if it's a thought, and being a victim is always a horrible thought. That is so binding to think that you're a victim of everything. I mean, what a horrible way to go through life.
Exactly.
And just take one little thing and take control of that, and make it personal, something you really enjoy, something you really want. So this is great. Your main, like, as you go on in your future, is your main thing to try to help people realize that they have control over their thoughts, or to quit being victims, or what is do you have like a certain push that you're trying, like ours is trying to get people healthy and off medications and out of the medical system? What's your main thing that you're going for? Do you even know yet? Maybe you don't even know, which is perfectly fine.
Well, and it has evolved, but I want to find those people who are intrigued, right, by this conversation, who's like, oh yeah, she did it. Oh, here's the victim, right? Oh, she doesn't know. She did it. Yeah, my life is so much harder than hers. Right. That's right. Something that you're saying.
You're going to have to find a hard one to come up with that.
Well, but hers is a cakewalk, so she doesn't understand my circumstances, right? Nope. I want to find that person, but they're intrigued. And it's like, I want to help them get from intrigue to the other side, show them the steps of, and obviously it does start with your mindset, from that person who's a victim but wants to change. Because if you don't want to, and I've learned this on my journey, it doesn't matter what anybody tells you. It's not any of these things. They're not going to work unless you put in the effort.
Yep.
And you have to be willing to put in the effort. You can't just say, oh, see what she told me, that didn't work. It's
Right.
not going to work unless you work it.
Right.
Yep.
And
And-
if
go
you're
ahead.
committed, then go ahead.
Right. And that's really what I look at it is you setting a goal is you giving a present to yourself. You're giving your future is going to be your present to where you are now. It's like, look what I did to myself 5 years ago. I thought this and I changed my thoughts and now look what I've done. And so you feel so good. It's like, thank you for doing that. And that's what I feel like a goal is that, is it's your future self. Thank you for now. And now you just want to make those little steps. So in the future, you are happy with the choices you made back in your past, which is so different from the way most people think. They feel bad about choices they made in their past and everything. But, a lot of times those are choices that were made back when you were really, young, your 20s and 30s, you may have made some bad choices. And then now it's run the rest of your life. It's like, you've got, just like you said, I mean, we're 50, 60 years old and we're just now really starting to live with our passion. So it's like, it's not too late, to change your victimhood into power.
Exactly. I mean, it's never too late. There's no excuse. It's just never too late. I was on some book thing, and the author's on there, 85 years old. She just wrote her first book. I mean, there was a lot of people in their 70s and 80s who were becoming first-time authors. How awesome is that?
Yep. I love it.
I mean, yeah. So no excuse. There is no excuse. Sorry, won't take any of your excuses.
If you start having excuses, you might want to go check out for a little bit and come back when you're in the right mindset.
That's right.
And seriously, thinking about, man, give your future self the biggest present you could is start making some goals now. You're going to be so happy with yourself in the future. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So is there
How can people reach you,
yeah,
find you,
yeah.
your book?
So my website's the best place because it has all of that, the book and all the other programs and things that I'm offering. I'm actually offering a masterclass on November 29th for free at noon Eastern. That is Rewrite Your Story. So, the first steps that you do need to take to start changing your life. And spoiler alert, thoughts is a big part of that presentation.
Oh, we should have talked about that.
Yeah. And so my website is debbieweiss.com.
And then is your store on there also? Or is that a different
My store is
website?
not on there. Well, there's a link to the store, but thank you for asking. It is you have to use the a sprinkleofhearts.com.
Okay.
Okay. And you can get the book from there also
You
and
can,
everything.
or on Amazon, but the link on my website will take you to the Amazon site.
Okay,
And the podcast.
And oh yeah.
You got the link on there too. Look at
Boy,
you. You've got so many things going on. You don't
I
even
know. I can't even keep track. I always forget about the podcast. It's kind of funny. Yes. So I do have a podcast. It's called the Maybe I Can podcast. And I'm actually trying something now. I started November 1st and I am dropping like 2 to 3 minute episodes 5 days a week.
Oh,
And I'm calling it because Sprinkle of Hearts, sprinkles I also love, sprinkles and hearts. So it's a morning sprinkle of inspiration because I found through my journey that just starting my day off with a little bit of either reading something positive or hearing something positive. And so that was my goal is just to get in your head for 2 minutes and give you a little pep talk for the day.
like
So
that.
I'm doing that at least through Christmas and then we'll see after that.
Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
really like that.
Yeah, that's very, very
Yeah.
neat. Well, we are so
Yes, thank
so
you.
proud of you, seriously,
Aw.
and I really I wish you all the luck in the world in helping change other people's lives, change other people's thoughts. I think that it's wonderful. It's it's a breath of fresh air, and to get around groups of people who are trying to make their lives better. I love all this.
Awesome.
So, is
Well,
there any closing things that you'd like to say, or
sure. I'll tell you that I'm gonna in the beginning first chapter of my book, I have this whole story about how I was never a girl with a quote, when we were younger and they would like your yearbook picture, what's your quote? And I'd be like, quote, like at 17, 13, I don't have a quote. And so I'd make one up or steal one from somebody else. And then when we first started with Facebook, they were like, put in your quote. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is never going away. And a few years ago, I was doing something and this phrase popped into my head. And I thought, oh, that is good. I wonder if I thought that or someone else said it. And it wasn't me. It was Glinda the Good Witch from The Wizard of Oz, who
Oh,
said, "You've always had the power, my dear. You just had to learn it for yourself." And
I
it
love
resonated with me so, because how many times had I heard that? How many times has I think of The Wizard of Oz and her saying to Dorothy, you all you had to do was click your heels 3 times and say there's no place for like home. You could have done this the whole time, and I took that for face value.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
so much more than that, because each of us does have the power within us, regardless of our circumstances,
Yes. Yes.
change your life.
Yeah. And you're not ignoring your circumstances. You're using those. You're using those as your fuel to do better, to help guide other people. And so we're not saying totally forget about what's happened to your past. That's the
No.
worst thing you can do. Your past is who you are. That's that's where you're going to get your energy to help other people, is to know who you are. So I love that. I heard you say that on one of your podcasts also. And I thought because I'm the same way. I love Wizard of Oz. I mean, much to my wife's chagrin.
I like
And I've heard that all these times too. It never sunk in until I heard you say that. I thought, my gosh, that's really profound.
I wish it were me, but it was Glinda.
Well, she'll come up with it.
Yeah.
Well, Debbie, this has been wonderful meeting with you, chatting with you, hearing your story. It's so inspiring. And I really hope that this helps some other people change their thoughts too, and just make life fun, make life a game and enjoy it. And you get to meet new people who, once you start
Exactly.
thinking positive, you find all these other people are thinking positive also. And it just gives your life so much energy. So
I
thank you.
couldn't agree more. Thank you so much. This is a great conversation.
Okay. And I guess that's all we have for now. So, listeners, thank you so much again for listening, and have a great week. And remember, make simple, healthy choices to live a quality life.
Guess she shoved me off.